Yeah.
From your plant,
Mhm.
coming down that the Crestjack Road there ways, coming back to Minnesota, or coming back to 100th.
Yep.
Is that gonna cut off and go down through that swale and then all the way across that valley down in there?
Basically follows the ravine. It's on the west side of the ravine, a few feet above the bottom of the ravine.
Okay,
And it just follows that all the way down to the river. Mostly, yeah.
you drill that through the road, I suppose.
Open cut it.
Huh?
We open cut it through the road.
You're gonna have to.
Goes down the road for a day.
Be pretty deep right there.
Well, it'll be 7 feet deep. 8 feet deep. So a day to close, to excavate across it, and they'll put rock back that night, and then probably a day to prep it and pave it. So we'll shut it down for, 12, 13, 14 hours twice.
I see, he's building a road across down below there, put culverts in.
Is he? Yeah.
Yep, down there.
I'm not surprised.
Hey, everybody, am I stealing
I
a
don't
chair or are
think-
they set up ahead of
You're
time?
supposed to do that in a.
Well, you can choose your alternate
water
identity.
run like
Can
that.
I?
I'm
I'm
Lizzie.
not sure what he's
Oh,
doing.
good to meet you.
I don't. Where he does whatever he wants to.
Kind of does.
How you doing? Doing all right. Getting cleaned up here. Got some Firehouse Mountain Dew. Can't beat it. Tastes better coming out of the Firehouse machine.
Oh, goodness. Well,
Be a big deal with my kids, man. Scraping up 75 cents and tramping over to the Firehouse for a drink.
More paper.
more paper, yeah. Yeah, I remember those days too. It used to be that
Thank you.
the soda or a handful of peanuts was a big deal. And
Oh, yeah.
that was a treat.
Oh, yeah.
That was quite a treat.
Yeah.
Not so much anymore.
And then one day I got home, found my kids were actually walking up to Gas and Go. I'm like, well, you didn't get run over and you're not begging me for chips or whatever. So we'll go with that.
I got a 12-year-old boy. He likes to, he'll bike to Quick Trip.
Oh, yeah.
Get a loaf of bread or
Yeah, there.
get some whatever.
Mhm.
It's not that far and he can take the path for most of it.
He's not gonna get in trouble with
No.
cars or anything. Yeah, that is good.
Yeah, that's a good little responsibility. Hey, John.
Hello,
Hanging in there.
Where'd the 71 cents come from on the $37 million bid? That's what I want to know.
They all got dollars in some.
Paper clips.
Wow. Yeah.
Well, we had to put an extra staple in there. So, tack it on.
Back it on there.
Yeah.
Well, if one guy comes in at 30,856,532, and you come
Right.
in 29 cents cheaper.
Boy, you'd be the
Low bid.
fool then, wouldn't you?
Low bid, you'd be the winner. Yeah. 29 cents got the bid, yeah.
For better or worse, we go by the low bids process.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's for better and sometimes it's
Right.
not.
What was responsible there?
Yeah, well, if the lowest bid's like, 2/3 of the other ones, you're like, maybe, yeah. That's what the Minneapolis Airport Commission is like, though. I work out there almost full time, and it's flat out low bid. But,
It's pretty hard to prove somebody not to be a responsible bidder. And then there, of course, are lists for people that get debarred either at the state level or specifically the federal level, but
Well, they try
I
to
don't
buy
know
their,
anyone.
yeah, they try to buy their way in. I mean, you buy the first couple jobs, you know, and then you're hoping that they like you enough so you can start turning that around, but.
All right, let's go ahead and get started. Yeah, a lot of interesting things and important things to talk about tonight, so. Joe and I have put the agenda together. I'll make a motion. We approve the agenda. Is there a second?
I will second that.
Joe? Comments? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Approved. August 10th meetings, there's a stapled copy there in front of you. Make a motion to approve those.
Make a motion to.
Larry, second. Oh, Paul. Sorry. Comments? That's approved. So, where would you like to start, Joe?
Well, yeah, the truth is, you know, I have a fairly significant memo to kind of go through, and that deals with a lot of the agenda items, at least in regards to the contracts 1, 2, and 3 and the bid results. And probably the most important thing we do tonight is to review that information and start to have a discussion about what that means to the overall project and where we're going. So, you know, I'd like to kind of walk through this. It's a 2-page memo. There's obviously a lot of paper here. We don't really have to look at all of it, but I tried to summarize the information within the memo. And so just to kind of go through that real briefly, on August 25th, 26th, and September 2nd, we opened bids. Hey, Lori. On the wastewater project. And we did get a decent number of bids on all 3 projects. There are letters within this little packet that summarize the results of the bid. And so, for example, for contract 1, we received three bids. Stop construction was the low bid. Contracts 2 and 3, we received 4 and 5 bids. And on both of those, Fitzgerald Excavating Trucking was a low bid. Now, we did also go through all the bids and we tabulated them. So there's a big tabulation that goes with each one of these award letters that are in this packet. And the reason I didn't include the tabulation is because it is unclear if we're going to award the project or not. At least I want to leave that option open to the city. And so there's a school of thought there that if you go ahead and disseminate the actual bid amounts, because they're unit price contracts, that, you know, potentially could skew the results of any rebidding effort. So at this point in time, since, you know, we don't know what the city really wants to do, we're going to hold those bid tabulations with the specific numbers kind of close to our vest. We'll provide them to the city council at the council meeting, but I don't really want to disseminate them amongst the public. And for the purposes of our discussion, I don't think it's really germane. But know that that information is there, and if people really want to see that, I'll be glad to review it with you. So if you take a look at the bids within the table, contract 1, 2, 3, the total construction bid amount of the low bid for all of those was about $37.856 million. We did bid 1 alternate. That was essentially the enhanced grinder station control panel. You can see that was a $32,000 ad. So the low bid plus that alternate totals about $37.888 million. We also have some substitute items that we could consider. From the standpoint of the wastewater treatment facility, the contractor 1, he had a $40,000 ad. for a different type of pump. And then actually contractor 2, well, actually, this is just or contract 2 and 3, we didn't have any substitutes. And so if you take the actual bid prices and you compare them to the engineer's estimate, that's the second to last column on the right side. The engineer's estimate totaled about $33.616 million. So you can see that on the very right-hand column, that's the actual bid divided by the engineer's estimate. And so you can see the total construction cost was about 12.6% higher than was estimated. Okay. So then if we take the construction cost, the as-bid construction cost, and in this instance, we're assuming that the alternate would be awarded. So that $37.888 million. We add in a construction contingency because it's a $37 or $8 million project. It would be irresponsible to have not to go in this without any construction contingency. My experience kind of says somewhere between 2% and 3%. I put it at 2.5%. That's darn near $1 million in contingency. So that I think is a healthy contingency. Hopefully we don't use any of it, but I think realistically we're going to use some of it. Something's going to happen that we'll use a chunk of that, and we should plan for that, budget for that. And then we have total construction costs. So that's estimated about $7.2 million. So that's basically all of the engineering work, all of the property acquisition, all of the permits, everything that we've kind of done to date is rolled up into that number. And I want to just clarify, we need to, we're continuing to working through those numbers and basically verifying all the math. I took this number from the feasibility report and made some minor modifications to it. We do have to verify that number. It should be very close. So if you add the construction cost plus the contingency plus the construction cost, you come up with about a $46 million project. And then we start deducting the grant dollars that we have in terms of the 2017 bonding bill, the 2018 bonding bill, the 2020 bonding bill, and the PSIG grant, and you come up with a local share of about $12 million. Okay. And so that $12 million would be financed through the Clean Water Revolving Fund or Drinking Water Revolving Fund. That's the low interest loan that we qualified for through PFA. And when it was $8 million, we qualified for the 20-year loan at probably 1%. We're hoping that we'll qualify for the 30-year loan at maybe 1.5%. So we've got to work through that with PFA. Those discussions are ongoing. So $12 million is basically 26.2% of the $46 million project cost. We talked about what the local share was estimated when we had the public hearing, when we did the feasibility report. The local share was previously estimated at about $8.2 million. It's obviously increased by about $3.9 million. And so that $3.9 million essentially impacts the city. It could be funded through assessments, most likely, and or a combination of general tax levy and or user rates. And so we'll work with Mike Bubani to kind of vet through that process and do some calculations, give the council some options. Okay. So on a high level, that's kind of where we're at. So jumping to the second page, a lot of this information I've kind of already talked about, and we'll get into in a few other respects. Obviously, the local share increasing by $3.9 million increases you know, from that $8 million to that $12 million, that's a pretty significant increase. It's about 47.7%. Whereas if you look at, you know, the project as estimated versus where it came in at, that's where that 12.6% number kind of comes in. So it kind of depends on how you look at it. The bottom line is, you know, our grants were all fixed, our construction costs are variable. And one of the issues that we had is we were bidding this, or we are in the midst of a pandemic, and there are material and labor shortages that I think impacted the project and the construction costs. In terms of the material shortages and material spikes, we'll get into that in a little bit, but I wanted to present the next table of information to you just to kind of give you a sense of what other wastewater treatment plants and what other projects and cities are looking at. So this is a table of recent projects that have been bid over the course of this year. And so you can see the city, the state, because there's a couple from Wisconsin, the bid dates, the engineer's estimate, the low bid, and the percent over budget. And then what's happening with the contract. And so you can see that 8 of the 9 projects were all over budget. The average of the 8 projects that were over budget, they were about 15.9% over what the estimate was. We're at about 13.9. So we're pretty darn close to whatever, we're in the same boat everybody else is what I'm trying to kind of say. There was one project, happens to be from my hometown, that actually came in low. So I'm not sure what happened there, but I think that was a function of a contractor in Winona really wanting to work there for unknown reasons. So that said, you know, I just wanted to kind of let you understand this escape of the world that we're kind of living in. And then I have also provided a little bit more commentary in terms of what's going on from the construction industry's perspective. And maybe not that we need to dwell on it because it is what it is, but I do want people to kind of understand what's going on because it impacts what we do in the future. And if we choose to consider rebidding this project or paring it back or trying to do some value engineering, give you a sense of what we're up against. I think this is pertinent information. But really, when we look at materials, we are really looking at PVC pipe prices. You know, for example, it used to be not long ago, you could buy an 8-inch diameter PVC pipe for $3 a foot, not 12. It's a huge difference. And then so when you start going up in diameter to, you know, 12 and 14, all the way up to 24 or 18-inch diameter, you start using a lot more resin and those costs really build fast. Steel prices, concrete prices or cement prices, copper, plumbing items, electrical items. Everybody's kind of heard about that when you're looking to buy cars, and some of this equipment and some of the electrical components are no different. So if you jump through and kind of look at some of the, well, let's just continue to stay on the page, and we'll not try to jump around quite so much. So we'll stay on the bottom of the page too. A couple other points. Again, the construction costs are about 12.5% above what the engineer's estimate was. But we did get competitive bids. All the projects, you know, for the wastewater treatment plant, I was happy with 3. There's not a lot of people that do that work. For the collection conveyance system, we had 4 to 5. There was a few people that I thought would bid that frankly didn't. But we got pretty good pricing. It was competitive pricing. And one thing that I would note is if you look at the combined low bidder for the 3 contracts, the low bid for the combined 3 contracts versus the combined second bidder for the 3 contracts, the difference in those 2 bids was $4.98 million. And so if you, for example, if Fitzgerald, who was the low bidder on the collection conveyance improvements, if they didn't bid this project, our bids would be about $4.5 million more than they are right now. And so that's significant. And so when I think about a rebidding scenario and I start to look at these material prices, I also look at the fact as to where the bids came in and the money that essentially got left on the table, right? And you start thinking about, are we gonna do better next time? You know, and we'll get into that a little bit, but frankly, I'm doubtful that we would do better if we rebid this at some point in the future. Given that disparity, given, you know, I think the uncertainty and the labor issues are they're not going anywhere.
So is there any concern, like on bid 3, where the second bidder was like $3 million away, that they missed something? Like, why is everybody else at like 12 million and they're at 8 million?
They weren't as greedy.
Is it really, I mean,
So the tabulation
all
shows
honesty-
material costs are in line and it's more.
Well, you can compare it to the engineer's estimate and if you look at his cost, I mean, if you compare it to the engineer's estimate, it's pretty consistent. Their bid unit prices compared to what we estimated is consistent. And so what's not consistent is the second bidder and the third bidder with the estimate. So if they weren't in line with that and there wasn't parallels, they essentially use the same bid prices in both jobs. And then played with the mobilization. They've got almost $1 million in mobilization on contract 3. And there's different reasons that people do that. But it's a lot of money.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, that's, you know, it's $4 million in between the high and low side. Give me a shovel.
Well, and how we did this is, you know, he was incented from the standpoint of he already had won the first job and he thought he had the capacity or feels he has the capacity. He wanted the second job. He wanted all of the work. And there is some economy of scale if a contractor is big enough and has the capability of handling that. And so I think he was incented from that perspective. And that's why he kept with his bid prices, even though he left a fair amount of money on the table in the first round of bidding for contract 2.
Did any of the contractors talk about or question the time frame? 27 months?
No.
Never come up as will be done in less time or didn't comment either way?
Didn't comment either way. Usually they won't unless they don't feel they can meet it. If they feel that there's an unrealistic expectation that they get done in a certain amount of time or the specified time, they'll complain about it.
Okay.
Nobody complained about it.
Good. It's good to hear.
So not to dwell on the rest of it, let's just kind of run through the rest of it real quickly. This is the bid results letter for contract 1. You can kind of see Stop Construction was first, the low bidder, Rice Lake was second, and Sheehy was the high bidder at just under $26 million. There is a bid tabulation that goes with this. Again, I'm kind of holding that close to the vest until the city makes the award, and then we'll make that public. It gets mailed to all of the contractors that bid, and it's available to plant holders too. And of course the city, but it just makes strategic sense to hold that close to the vest at this point. Contract 2, Fitzgerald was low,
The stub is located in Wisconsin, central Wisconsin.
Marshfield, Wisconsin, I believe, yes.
Does that, like for the plant and that stuff, does that also include the pipe to get there and that, or is that on another contract? And like the one that rolls back to the river,
That's all in contract 2.
it's all into,
Yes, so the plant is basically the 10-acre parcel there. They have to do the pipe work within the 10-acre triangle there, but that's it. They don't go outside that. And so we bring the pipe to them from Orinoco and Orinoco Estates, and then from the plant to the river is all part of contract 2. And the thinking on that is their wastewater treatment facility contractors doing site work. They're not necessarily pipe contractors that, you know, want to do that type of work. And then contract 3, again, Fitzgerald's a low bidder at just under $8 million, or just over $8 million if you include the $32,000 alternate, which was for the grinder station control panel upgrade that we talked about at the last meeting. Then I have been corresponding with some different contractors and suppliers, and they provide me some pretty interesting information. We won't go through all of this in detail, but I think it is pretty interesting. You can look at it to the extent you want to. But this first illustration, there's just some correspondence on top from the gentleman that provided the information, but it talks about how steel increased. And so you can see the graph and how steel increased from May to June to July. And on the left side is, of course, the index. If you jump to the next page, I think this is even more telling. This kind of is the same index over since 1985 to 2020 and beyond. And you can see that we usually see some variability. We don't see variability like this.
Would that be for like tanks and things like that? The sheet.
I think it's cold rolled steel and flat strips, cold rolled sheet and strip steel. So I think it's just bulk steel materials that they use to fabricate other things. And so the reason this guy was giving me this is they supply equipment at the treatment facility and they buy this stuff, and that's how they fabricate, you know. And this would also apply to other things, like rebar and concrete, and, you know, all the reinforced manholes are full of steel. It affects large portions of the project, and these are just a couple examples. And so the next one is rubber and plastic products, plastic water pipe. Again, it's a similar tale. You hit June and things were increasing, but not like they did from June to July. And then if you look at the next table, you can kind of see that long term, and what's telling is this spike at the end. One of the things we do when we put together an estimate for all of these types of projects is, you know, the process people talk to suppliers and say, you know, you've got different pieces of equipment, what's it gonna cost? And so you get quotes for that, and that's how you essentially build an estimate in conjunction with estimating, you know, raw materials and labor and different things like that. And so we were questioning folks because, you know, months before, it's like, yeah, this piece of equipment's gonna be, you know, $150,000, and, you know, post bid it's $225,000, and what the hell happened? And so we were asking those types of questions, and this is some of the correspondence he gets back. And so the next kind of gives different material prices, and you can see the index numbers for different essentially commodities from Q1, Q2, and Q3 that are available and published. And, you know, everything in pink is going up, everything in green is stable or going down. And what this tells you is generally things are going up, and there's a lot of variability in things. And so when you look at that variability in purchasing materials for this type of construction project, especially when, you know, some of this material isn't going to be needed for a while, there's risk in that for the contractor because they don't know. Today, they can get a quote that they can buy, you know, 8-inch pipe for so many dollars a foot, but that quote's good for 30 days. You know, if that now. And so the reality is, you know, we have a 90-day award window. All of their quotes could be no good by the time they go to award, and that places some risk on those folks, and they deal with that. And the way to deal with that is kind of cover yourself a little bit.
So based on that, Joe, assuming this were to be awarded, or hypothetically we award it, contractor's gonna order absolutely everything they can as soon as they can.
I don't know. That's one way to do it. It depends on, you know, if you
Or
look
they're
at that,
gonna-
if you look at this
They're
graph,
taking a trip to the casino and they're.
well, you are a little
Yeah,
bit,
yeah.
right? But these guys do. And if you look at that graph and you think to yourself, do I really want to buy here? Or do I think I'm gonna buy here? You know, and I'm not a contractor. I couldn't sleep at night doing stuff like that. But they do.
If you bulk buy, you're like, oh, now
Price
where do I
lowers
put,
then.
where do I put this?
Well, if the price is
Right,
lower and they
that's it.
wait, they could make
Yeah.
huge money, but if it keeps on going up, then they assume that risk and they eat it.
Yeah.
So let's, for the sake of argument, let's say the contractor is conservative and they buy all this material, they deliver it and get it on site so they can get paid for it.
Mhm.
Um,
So that there is a mechanism for payment for material on hand, provided it's insured and protected.
okay, so, and there's areas set up for stockpiling that kind of materials.
That's
Mhm.
on them, yeah.
No, they need to supply that. So if they have a warehouse that they want a warehouse, you know, 17 miles of pipe in, knock yourself out. Most but don't.
No, they don't, but so do we pay for it if it's in their warehouse, or would we wait till it's delivered to the job site?
So long as we can prove that they've taken delivery of it and they have proof of insurance, then they can apply for payment for material on hand.
And we've got the money to pay for it.
Yes.
Okay.
The
So,
challenge too, when the prices go down, then it's gonna be an issue, can they get it? Because everybody's gonna be wanting it if it's lower price, so then you're
well,
you're
that's,
running a risk
Well,
of
so-
getting it.
So the project we're in right now, contractor ordered absolutely, I mean, they were really pushing their subs to get everything on site to make sure it was available. And the contractors that didn't are slowing down the whole project because there's, you know, some little widgets missing.
could
and it's
be
filling up
electrical
the whole
conduit,
show.
you know, something
Right.
dumb.
Well, and not even the conduit, but you know, the little nut that holds the conduit to the
Yeah.
box, you know, you
Yeah.
can't get them.
And that's true. I mean,
window
I've,
frames are all in, but there's no glass.
yeah, I heard
So-
dumb things like that. You know, we've got a project where we've got big water main, it's 16-inch water main, can't get it.
Right.
And in fact, I talked to the owner of Staub, who's an engineer, he's very sharp. And we kind of talked about some of these issues. They know better than any of us know what's going on, and he's like, yeah, a lot of this material, I can't get for 7 months, and I said, well, that's fine, you don't need any of it for 7 months. You know, the first thing they're gonna do on site is site grading, you know, and then they might do a little bit of, you know, pipe and foundation work and that type of thing. But they'll need to be, you know, processing shop drawings and ordering materials and ordering equipment and starting to get those processes moving. But, you know, you won't
Yeah.
see a lot happen in terms of material installation on site till next
No,
spring.
no, but I would expect that if this gets awarded, that shop drawing submittals, everything's gonna be pushed really hard to try.
I
to get,
would.
Yeah. Material on site, or at least ordered.
At least ordered.
Okay,
You know, and ordered doesn't mean delivered, you know,
Right.
but it's the best you can do. Get in the queue.
And you have to do that. One of the hats I wear is
Yeah.
chair of supply chain management. And I was on the phone with the White House and other things today because of supply chain things. I talk with manufacturers and stuff around the world, and plastics and certain things they're having issues from raw materials to processing to manufacturing. They even have 4 different suppliers and they're struggling to get materials. The costs are only going to go up. And they're telling us and forecasting now and we have black special pricing, that all of that's gonna be potentially thrown out the window because they're like, we just can't get it. So I can only imagine that going out to rebid would be bad in all honesty, because the bids are only gonna go up, the prices are only gonna go up, and supply chain storage is not changing at any time soon. So
I agree with you, and then you look at what's happening nationally, you know, so there's this infrastructure bill that's coming.
Demand is gonna go
The
higher.
demand is there, believe it or not.
We're busier now than we were pre-pandemic. Because I honestly don't know why.
I don't know why
We're
either.
insanely busy.
Yeah,
And as painful as the pricing is, getting this stuff is worse.
Yeah.
You know, we're like, okay, we just paid 350% over what we normally pay, but we at least have the thing in hand so we can get a job done. But yeah, I've never seen it like this. Just my house, I paid $68 a sheet for OSB, which should be $23.
yeah.
So do I want a bath?
Sick to do,
Yeah, do I want a bathroom or not, you know?
Yeah.
Stand in the dirt and go to the bathroom, or do I want a floor, you know?
So Joe, what else do we need to be prepared to share with this? With the council?
Well, I think that I kind of covered it, and then I think I did pass out some questions that I'd like to talk about,
Okay.
if that's okay.
Sure.
You know, and so I guess the first question, I think we've kind of answered. I think we, based on comments that I'm hearing, and I would agree with them that I don't think we're gonna do better if we rebid this in February, March.
they're gonna come back higher.
I think we're gonna come back higher.
I agree.
Can I ask a question? Because the $1 million question that the residents of Orinoco are gonna wanna know, is that added $4 million? What's that gonna be to me, right? Because at the public hearing, they were all told, here's what you're expected to pay, right, your share. What is that, do you have a ballpark of what that does to that number?
It goes up 50%.
Is that really
So it goes from 6 to 9-ish.
$69,000 for homeowner? Yeah, that's what they're gonna want. right?
Well, and
And then how does that also impact our Orinoco estates? Same equally, right? Or
not necessarily.
I know they have the lower income.
It will increase their share, but the share that they have to pay is dependent on the income survey and whether they qualify for the WIF funding. See, that WIF funding could essentially eat that cost up. But we don't know because they won't.
They won't fill it. They haven't filled the surveys out, so they ain't getting any money.
Yeah, is there any progress on that?
We'll get to that, but yeah. No, is the short
Oh,
answer.
no, that's kind of the answer I expected. I just thought I'd ask. No is adequate. You know? It's sad, but
It makes no sense.
I understand.
Right,
The alternate bid in 3, that's for the grinder station control panel enhancements. We talked about that as a group. It's, you know, $32,000 divided amongst 84 units. You know, we're already over budget, but on the other hand, it was important enough that we thought we would include it. You know, not that it makes a big difference in my calculations, but if you have an inkling, if you're going one way or the other, you let me know.
In the long run, I think it is a good feature to have.
I think so. It just,
I think it'll pay for itself.
what will it, refresh me, what will it do? Because obviously on a project that we're already way over budget, right? What value, what's the added value?
My expectation is that, you know, after talking with Dan and about, you know, what they do for maintenance. They don't have a very deep toolbox when it comes to electrical maintenance. So the advanced grinder station controls has a keypad on it that tells you the main it's like the check engine light, except it says, hey, you know, maybe more than the check engine light. It's got the alternator light, the flat tire light, the airbag light, you know, in pretty simple terms. It points you in the right direction.
Gives you diagnostics.
Yeah, to what's wrong with this pump.
And it helps, it's upgradable
Which
in
is
the
time.
future if you wanna, ultimately have some sort of modem and some sort of communication tool added to that. You have that ability to do so,
So it gives city staff the opportunity to say, hey, this is something we can fix ourselves. It'll take an hour versus calling the vendor saying, we don't know what's wrong. Come on, take a look at it.
So because since we're buying these and we own these and we maintain these, not the homeowners, it's to the advantage of the city and long-term could have benefits. If I'm hearing correctly, savings and better service and diagnostic.
So by the way, the low bid contractor for Fitzgerald is E1. Barnes did not provide, even Barnes didn't quote that.
So it's about $380 per unit,
Something like that.
which is,
Yeah, I support it.
you back up. One basement that backs up, you've taken care of that offset right there.
32,000, yeah.
Okay, we'll leave that.
That and, those facilities are long-term facilities, so. That control panel hopefully is,
Yeah, the small cost.
small cost amortized over a longer period. I think the next question is pretty straightforward, but I gotta ask the question, we can try to do some value engineering working with the contractors. And so are there things that they saw that we specified where, a certain type of something was more costly, and are there ways to kind of pare down the cost a little bit? And so, I think there probably are. I'm hoping that there's $250,000, maybe up to $500,000 that we could value engineer. Now, sometimes that means you're getting a little less. So for example, on a piece of equipment, instead of 2 control panels or 2 displays, maybe you get 1. You get less in some of these instances. But you still get a product that, is a reasonable product for a slightly lesser cost that, there's value in it. So we wouldn't recommend things that don't make sense, but we can try to value engineer things and try to work with contractors to
I
cut
guess my
costs.
only question with the value engineering is, would it change any of our ability to service what we are, because this plant's for the next, 20, 30, 40 years, right? And we already had a number of potential developments come to, for example, P and Z, but they want to build a large retirement home with, 70-some plus units. Plus, I got another one who wants to develop the ones. I just got an email today.
In terms of capacity, no changes, we're pretty much set on what we can treat and how we treat it and the limits that we have to meet and those types of requirements. It's more about, different ways to do things and
Because I do
different
see
approaches.
this.
And sometimes contractors just have good ideas.
Yeah.
They're smart people too. And we can't be proud enough to.
It's every day.
So anyway, that's kind of,
Usually about 10:30, quarter to 11.
It is. The hillbilly runs deep down the street.
so that would seem to make sense to me. I would
Doesn't hurt.
pursue that. It's not a huge amount of money, but it's a lot of money. I mean, it's a lot of money to any of us.
So is that with the value engineering exercise, would that delay the schedule of anything?
It takes some time and effort,
So
and so ultimately we want to process a change order to decrease or change anything that we want to do. Does it have to necessarily impact award? No, we can award it with the understanding that, we're going to process that change order and we're going to reduce costs. And, maybe we go into that with the understanding that, instead of a 2.5% contingency, we're going to go in it with 1.5% contingency and expect to make some things up in value engineering. And so that's essentially our extra.
do contractors have to agree to? You're gonna do the value, you're doing the value engineering, they're
Yes.
doing it with you.
No, I've already asked all of those contractors to start looking at things and giving me ideas on where and how we can save
But
money.
it's their cost.
Well, they're
To
gonna,
do that work. Or are we paying for them to take that initiative?
You're not paying for them, but you would be paying Stantec to work with them to make that happen, just on an hourly basis, just like you are now.
I think that's worthwhile, 'cause sometimes they see things like copper pipes more expensive than stainless steel, so, yeah.
Like you said, they're smart people, that's what they do too, and, if they've got a good idea, I'm not too proud to say that's a good idea, let's do it.
Well, we put a maybe beside that one for now.
We talked about the fact that there's a 2.5% contingency that, it's damn near $1 million. I do think that we need some contingency, whether 2.5% is the right number, I don't know. We need something there that's sufficient or significant. Nobody says this is the number you have to use. It can't be more than 5% from DFA's perspective. And by the way, there's a reason why we might want to play with those numbers a little bit. For example, if the difference between the city getting a 20-year loan and a 30-year loan is $1 million on this, I might tell the city, let's push that up to 5%, knowing that we're probably not going to use it, but it qualifies us for a different loan category. And, so we'll play with the numbers.
Yeah.
To make things make sense. We'll let you know that. But
If we do use that contingency factor, that's going to affect our user fees, our local share.
that is built into the local share. It's the second line on that table. This number right here.
Got it.
And so all I'm saying is if you
Okay.
want that number to be something different, you gotta tell me. Otherwise, I'm gonna leave it at 2.5% because that's where I'm comfortable.
I think you leave it there until you find out more with your loans and other stuff and then adjust as needed.
And then items 5, 6, and 7 really are options, and I'm not advocating that we do this, but if we need to cut money out of the project, and that is the goal of the city, these are some options. Okay, and again, not necessarily advocating to do it, but they're, everything's on the table at this point. I'm just putting it out there so the decision makers have the information necessary to do that. So 5, 6, and 7 are kind of options that, in terms of if we want to reduce the project by a significant amount, these are things we can do. So over and above value engineering, the way to cut costs is to take things out, right? And so 6 really deals with, or 5 really deals with the Cedar Woodlands lift station and force main. So that's lift station 3, I guess. And so that's here. I'm sorry, it's lift station 4. Okay. And so lift station 4 services 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 houses at this point. Okay. Now, lift station 4 is strategically very important because it serves all this area. Okay, gravity flows there, right? And so to get that place, pretty important. But could we eliminate that lift station and the force main that extends to the trunk and construct it in the future and not serve those folks right now? Yeah, we could. What would it save? It'd save, $750,000.
Those are the same folks that gave you access to the river for your thing, right?
Well,
Access road and stuff for this project?
the city has an easement, drainage and utility easement, so they didn't give the city anything. Coincidentally, they have not signed that agreement either.
I wouldn't say it saves, it defers that cost.
Yes, thank you. It doesn't say the cost, and that's why I think I put it
Which
here
means
is,
when we pay for it in the future, we're gonna pay 100% of the cost and not 75% of the
right.
cost.
Well, and in the future, if that's in 10 years, it's not gonna be $750,000. It's gonna be, 1.1 million.
Well, and I think also from a citizen perspective, why did you put it in if we don't need to do it?
We,
No, like, we need to do it someday, but.
right. Well,
And I think that's what people are gonna say.
that could well be, but I'm just saying, if we, I'm again, not advocating for these things, but these are options.
But then you lose paying customers too, right?
You do,
They'll offset the fees, because those,
So we lose.
right?
Yeah.
Well, you lose $6,000 times 12, so, but where you'd really lose out is you lose that ratepayer for the next 10
for
years,
the ongoing maintenance and support of the
Right.
station. That's what I was going, yeah.
right?
Yeah, you're penalizing the people that, if we delete those people, you're penalizing everybody else to support the treatment
Pay more.
plant. And we got 80% funding to do it. In the future, it's gonna be all users paying for it. So to me, I think we should just not offer those.
Is there
If somebody
any,
comes in with a big building project, something big, you lose that too, because you lose it for the property.
Well, strategically, for development in the future, that lift station is just like lift station 3 in Riverwood Hills, they're important. And if, if that investment isn't made, well, the development doesn't come, because it's pretty hard for the city to sink $750,000 in that lift station, because the developers aren't gonna do it.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's strategic, it makes sense. Anyway, again, not necessarily, go ahead.
is there any cost that we can cut down on the actual building itself? Like, these are all, wastewater treatment infrastructure, but in the actual building, is there anything that we can cut? I mean, if you think of building a house and I need to cut some costs, I have upgraded steel siding, and instead of doing that, I do vinyl, or I have really nice windows and I do okay windows, or.
Yeah, and that kind of falls under that value engineering option. I think they're smaller ticket items that might add up to, a real sum of money. These are, I tried to just identify some, let's look at some big ticket items that, because we're looking at $4 million, if we're looking at, even $100,000 here or there, it just doesn't make a dent in $4 million. So, but yeah, the value engineering in terms of, are there some big things at the treatment facility that we want to do, we could look at that.
It's not millions.
Yeah, it's not millions. And, even if you look at the admin building, for example, there's tile on the wall. Well, there's tile on the wall and you could save $1,000 there, but do you really want to do that? Maybe.
But the tile, I mean, if you're talking little things that we could do to cut costs that aren't gonna affect the consumer, I mean, we have to pay for it no matter what. So it's kind of like saying, well, I don't have to, I'm gonna write this off on my taxes, so I'm gonna buy it. It's like you still have to spend the money. So if it's $1,000 that we could save.
Right.
I realize it's a tiny little, portion of a large amount of money, but it's still something.
Right. Well, and, things like tile on a wall, it's there for a reason. It's durable, and it lasts and it's maintenance free. And so at some point, there's a value to that, right? And so you're not painting the wall, you're not, so.
Okay.
The other items were, consider delaying sewer and water to Stolp's Cove. And so if you remember Stolp's Cove is that first place southeast, yeah, southwest. That we're installing some grinder stations and there's some water main going through treetops and forest lanes that service those folks. There's a good $500,000 there that, that could be delayed. It could be delayed till the next phase. Again, are there some people that need that? Yeah, there are. Again, not advocating, but saying. The last one is kind of a little different way of looking at it. So the last one is the grinder station. So there's about $1.6 million in grinder station costs on private property. And so one thing that we could do is not include that in the construction costs. Of course, then we wouldn't be constructing those grinder stations, and those people wouldn't theoretically be very happy about that. But we could, in the same token, be pursuing additional bonding bill funds, because that won't be done until 2023. Theoretically, there's a bonding bill in 2022. Maybe we go and ask the legislature for another chunk of money to pay for the grinder stations. Now, that could backfire and they could laugh at us and say, no.
You're here once. Yeah.
Yeah, you're here once.
We already paid for those.
Yeah, we gave you 24.
Especially if they were already.
I'm just trying to look at things different
That's okay.
ways, and again, I don't think it's a great idea, but you know, and I don't think going back to the legislature, if we award all of it or part of it or none of that, we can still do that. I guess I'm not gonna. I don't know how successful we would be. Maybe Ryland has a better idea than me.
I feel like, I think in all of these things, we're over the estimate, but you put everything in perspective. If we didn't get 80% funding and we were looking at 50% local, and we come in, whatever that huge number is, on our assessments on a 50-50, it would be just be a hardship for everybody. And I think we need to keep everything in perspective, that we do have overhead costs or over budget, but at the same time, we have 80% funding, which is very unusual. And I don't think we can guarantee that again.
Well, and
Whenever we do it again.
the reality with the increased construction costs is we don't have 80% funding anymore. We've got 73.8%. So 74% funding is what we have, which
Still pretty good.
you know, frankly, is pretty good.
Yeah.
And you know, you tell the legislature that and they might say so.
We gave you 3/4 of your,
Right. Right.
And we got 75% of those 84 people saying, yes, I want it.
Yeah.
Or well, I'll accept it.
Yeah.
So we're appeasing to the 25%, which.
Right. So some things to think about. And again, 5 through 7, I want to try to provide options to decision makers, because it's not my decision. I'm not advocating for them, but if we really want to cut costs, that's why I put it there. So item 8, one of the things that I've been thinking about is that we have the ability to modify how we distribute the bonding funds. We don't have to equally distribute the bonding funds for water improvements and sewer improvements. And in fact, in the first round, we didn't. It's not quite perfectly distributed based on the feasibility report that was previously prepared and the costs that were in that, and we decided we'd stick with that. And what I'm kind of asking is, do we want to continue that thought process? We are doing or recalculating all the cost splits, so we will know what the water main actually costs. But one of the things that occurs to me is maybe we should hold that water main cost assessment stable and just vary the one sewer assessment. Because some people are getting sewer and water, and so if both of those go up, it would hurt those folks disproportionately. So,
It's good to know.
you know, I guess I think one could make the case that we maybe push a little bit more bonding bill money to the water side if we need it, to make sure that we hold pretty close to that $6,150 assessment for water. And then that might mean the sewer side will go up a little bit more. Not a lot more, but a little bit more. But that would get distributed amongst more people and might be less.
I would say we look at that definitely when we get to the point of assessing it.
Well, but see see,
What's the timing on that?
well, when we're doing the PFA things and we're calculating the loan dollars,
So we need to know.
we gotta kind of,
Right, no, I
So
understand.
can I ask
it's,
a question? So for the bonding money that we got, right, the 24 million, the 2.5, did we get that primarily to help with the water, or was it because we're the largest unsewered district and there were septic system failing? Are they expecting that money to be spent more for sewer? Is there any ties or strings?
well,
on
it
that?
is, I mean,
Right,
it's,
because if they gave us the money and they're expecting us to spend it on one thing over the other, do we have to worry about that? Because right, they're the ones who gave us all this money.
it's right in the bonding bill that it's sewer and water.
It's sewer and water.
Yeah,
But so
so-
they didn't allocate and say, you gotta spend X percentage on this and X percentage on this, because that's why we gave it to you.
No.
So there's no penalty. I guess that's where I'm going is,
There's no
But
penalty.
the water itself was 2.7 or 2.2 million. I remember, a little 2 million.
Yeah, something like that, I don't remember for sure. It's a very small fraction of the total project cost. You know, it's
Yeah.
2 versus 30. You know, and
I think it would be a good, because for those people that are getting doubles or 2 assessments, I think it would be good for the city to do that and because the other 350 users currently have, they're gonna benefit from having more users too.
Yeah.
So,
But would shifting bonding money into the sewer project help have a better impact on lower income properties and residents?
everybody downtown, no, I'm sorry, on the west side, downtown already has water except for us.
and the west side is they're the folks that are getting the water and sewer. So they're, the other thing that does is it increases your loan for the sewer slightly, which puts us in a better light in terms of the funding piece.
What was that first part you were saying though? About who's getting water versus who's getting sewer?
Downtown has water now from
Yep.
2009, so there's some homes on Fifth Avenue or across the river. And then the ones on Center Street, First Street, everybody on the west side. They're getting both sewer and water, and then a few through Tilly's to 12th Street.
Yeah.
12th Avenue.
Most of those are newer,
Uh-uh.
no? No, okay.
can I ask one more question? So if we shift costs, instead of raising both, say $100, but then you shift only sewer, is that gonna go up $200? So it doesn't really matter if I'm getting both? Because either if they both went up $100, I'm gonna pay more. But if you just only raise sewer $200, I'm still paying the same amount,
Kind of, it's just that.
right? Because it doesn't make a difference.
Well, it does from the standpoint of there's, 100 people getting water and there's 500 people getting sewer and water. And so you're dividing that number by a different ratio. You're taking a little extra, if you evenly distributed it. That would be different, but I'm kind of proposing not to completely evenly distributing it. I'm proposing it to supplement the water side slightly. But that supplement has to be made up on the sewer side, and so that total dollar amount gets made up on the sewer side, but it gets divided by more users on the sewer side than it does on the water side. So it means a smaller increment increase
Because
the-
more people are paying for it.
because more people are paying for it. But the
But
bottom line is the
people are-
same,
But less people are benefiting from the water
yes.
because they already have it and they already paid for it once, so now they're gonna pay for it again.
No,
Because they got assessed for it originally.
yeah, but we're not assessing those folks for the water piece. Just the sewer piece.
Right, but you're raising their rate on their sewer to help pay for the other people's water.
Well,
Right?
or on the other side of that, they're being provided a lower subsidy for their sewer. And so instead of the subsidy being, 74%, it's 73%.
I don't follow.
I do, but nobody's gonna see it that way. So,
We can just, you know, we can do it. And proportion it out evenly amongst everybody. I guess I would recommend not doing that, but
Isn't that how we had originally talked about doing it?
it is not proportioned 100%. No. You look back in the feasibility report, there's some notes about that, but no, it wasn't. We kind of tried to target that $6,150 and
I think it's all gonna be, I'll be honest with you, it's gonna be how you message it. It's gonna be key.
I would propose you don't change it unless there's a benefit to changing it. As you were mentioning,
I
some
think
funding benefits.
there are
or
some
something like
benefits
that.
to it.
But if it's just
They're modest
shifting,
though.
yeah.
They're modest, and I'll know that a little bit better when we actually finish the cost splits and do the math. I don't know that it's a huge deal either way. I bring it up tonight because I'm looking at doing those calculations soon. And my preference or my recommendation would be that we try to keep the water assessment close to the same and we vary the sewer assessment more because it affects more people.
Because originally we had, I think it was 6,100 for water and 5,900 for sewer. There was about a $200 difference between the two.
Yeah.
So we know the 5,900 is going to go up because of the over cost. And we're putting that across everybody, the 500 units or plus 700 units. The water is just for those people that are getting the double ones, so the 109 water users.
Right.
I used a lot of it last month.
Did you?
What's that?
I used a lot of it last month.
That's good.
Yeah, it's just gonna be hard, because I think at the end of the day, someone's gonna go, I was gonna pay 5,900, but now it's gonna be 9,000, right? And so that's a huge jump.
Yeah.
That's what people are gonna care about. If they're not gonna, if you lose a couple of dollars here, that's not gonna be, they're gonna be focusing on, you said 5,900 and now it's, right, there's overage. But
Somebody could have told us we were gonna have a pandemic, we could have planned for it.
Yeah.
no, I get it. And option 5, 6, 7, I think we're just
Well,
gonna have
Joe
a
might
bunch
have
of angry
known, but he didn't
people
share.
who all
I would've
said I was
voted no.
expecting service
Well, I just,
subsidized.
I think if somebody asks a question, why did you shift this money around? Should be prepared to defend that decision with a good answer and not just, well, we thought these people could pay for it better than these people or something like that.
Right.
They're gonna ask you.
Just spread across more, you know.
Yeah, I think there is a rationale there that makes sense, but. Anyway,
Okay, number 9.
item 9 really deals with the house that burnt down on Fifth Street Northwest. My assumption is that won't be rebuilt. And we probably shouldn't service it with water and really burden the homeowner with additional, or the property owner with an additional assessment for something they might not ever use.
When did that burn down?
Back in June,
July.
the lady that passed away in the fire.
Yeah, I didn't hear about that.
Yeah.
Is it a property that could have another home built on it though?
I really don't think it's a buildable lot.
Isn't there much property there?
I have no idea where it is or.
If we don't put it in there now, I mean, it's a couple $1,000 for a contractor to put it in.
The water main
We're just
goes
talking about water, we're not talking about
right
sewer.
through the
just water main.
front yard there, and given the circumstance, it just seems like it's unnecessary.
Not enough to deal with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the minimal cost later, I guess.
I don't know if there was. Who was really, it was just Dr. Olson and her. And I don't know what there was for any, next to kin
Where is
at
this?
all.
Across
Some in
from the
Wisconsin, I
auction,
guess, but that's
Is
what I
it?
heard.
on the hill
It's,
across the street where the auction is.
Yeah.
It's tucked down in there. You can see it clearly if you're driving down the road.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I honestly didn't even know there was a house down
Higher
there.
to Northwest, or Fifth
It's,
Street Northwest.
it's 30 feet below the street level.
Right
down
above the
this
Lake Shady Bridge.
steep hill.
Mm.
Up here.
Yeah, it's across from the auction.
No, I'm sorry, it's here. Auction place is here. The overpass is here.
Mhm.
Kind of looks out onto the lake, but it's really steep and it's not a lot of room to build there.
Okay, so the next questions were,
Just, we've gone through a lot of these. We haven't, I don't know if we've given Joe answers to them. Is this something we're looking to vote on, or what's the,
Make recommendations. to
yeah, what's the
council.
outcome?
Yeah.
What are we, when we discuss these things, what are we hoping to achieve at the end of the discussion?
I was hoping to get some just general consensus. I don't know if we need to vote on them or not. My consensus was that, no, you don't wanna, you don't like the rebidding concept. I don't think that's likely. Yes, we want to award alternate for contract 3. Maybe to yes, we want to pursue value engineering. 2.5% for now seems reasonable. Items 5, 6, and 7 at this point, we're not overly interested in pursuing. I think additional information might be warranted for item 8. And I'm assuming that you don't want to
yes, remove.
put a water service to the house that burned down.
Just jump back up to the value engineering. So is that value engineering? To do that, is that PFA refundable or is that city funds?
No, it's fun.
It is PFA, okay.
Based on the fact that 100% of the, you know, like you said, every dollar comes out of somebody's pocket here in town. I think it would be irresponsible not to do that.
I agree. And to your point, I think contractors have good ideas that we didn't think of, right? So they weren't thought of, and they might actually come up with ultimately something that's better and cheaper. It doesn't hurt.
All right.
You feel like you're getting what you need, Joe?
Yeah, unless you disagree with what I just kind of told you or summarized. So then other points to kind of talk about. So the contracts are written so that there's a 90-day award window. So that means that 90 days after the bid date, you can award the project without the contractor objecting. After 90 days, they can pull their bid. And, you know, at that point, unless there's a mutual agreement, they don't need to honor their bid anymore. I would, you know, the schedule says that we award the project in late September or October. I tend to try to want to stick to that schedule if we think we're going to move forward. It does facilitate the construction process, allows people to start ordering materials and moving forward. And I think that is best for everybody. If indeed that's the direction the city council wants to go. Item C, something to start thinking about. You know, we did have a public hearing on this. We did present costs. The costs were based on the feasibility report and the estimate of construction costs at that time. And we kind of run into some things that we didn't necessarily foresee in terms of materials and construction costs that have impacted that, and that will impact the amount we're assessing to people. I don't think that the city is legally obligated to go through this process, but I think perhaps morally we have an obligation to at least invite people in, explain what's going on, and tell them what we know.
I think for transparency, you're gonna want to do that. That's a no-brainer. You have to do that, really. It's a must. The question though that will you have the answers to is, will you know if we qualify for a 30-year loan or a 20-year loan? All of those things, you're gonna need to put your numbers, right? Right. Because you're gonna need that information, because that's what people are gonna want to hear is, okay, it was 5,900 and 6,100, what is it now?
So that means, you know, probably in October having another meeting. And the sooner the better, because if we're gonna award in October, we should probably have a meeting and then we should probably award. If that's indeed what we wanna do. But we need to start thinking about that and planning for it, and this is the start of that. So as I kind of talked about, I'm working with the city, so mostly Ryland and Mike Bubani and Anita at PFA, in conjunction with myself, will be running through numbers and doing projections and trying to solidify the financial picture so that we can present that to the council and the public and of course the stormwater committee. And so that's the direction that we're headed. We do have budget within the existing contract that hasn't been used. It's an hourly budget that was essentially appointed for, you know, things like agency coordination and some of these types of tasks, in addition to we're a little under budget and some of the other hourly tasks associated with property acquisition and permitting. So I'm assuming or projecting that I just continue to use that hourly budget that we've already been approved to do this type of work. I also think that we should have a special council meeting early in October to kind of continue to keep the council up to date and answer questions and address questions and
So
those
from
types of things.
from a planning, if we decide, we should probably have, what do you see the sequence of events of having the October 4th meeting? Open house after that, information meeting after that, or?
I think we almost have to set the date at the September meeting now, as I kind of think about it, because it just takes time. So the invitations and things like that have to be prepared.
Well, and you want
For the
to,
October
you said
4th.
the October meeting, the board has to approve the contract.
At an October meeting, so yeah, public,
So we'll take off the September agenda, or just an update of what our plans are.
award of the contract is not, or shouldn't be on the agenda for September meeting. I modified the agenda today, I
Did you?
didn't
Okay.
see it on there.
So you're not gonna award it then on September?
I don't think,
It's not on the agenda.
I wouldn't. I think we've got too many questions to answer yet.
What are those
Between now-
questions? Just financing,
Yeah.
cash.
Yep. Running through all of, yes, this is exactly what the project cost number is, because I provided you with that, and I think I'm pretty close, but there's some project costs that need to be verified, and then we need to rerun through all of the cost splits and recalculate the assessments and redo the cash flow cash flow analysis and work with PFA and figure out what we do and don't qualify for. And there's a lot of work that needs to
So
be
what
done.
would the goal then be at the public meeting in October is you'd go with this essentially worst case scenario, with 8,000 over or 8 million over figure, because you're not gonna have your value engineering options and all of that fine details worked out by October.
Probably not.
So you have to kind of go, here's where we are at our current, with all our things listed. We're hoping to cut that down further, so your shares would all be reduced slightly, but this is where we're at. This is what the estimated costs are. This is the financing options that we could get.
I think that I might, I think that I
You can't go
would.
back later and say it goes up higher. I guess where I'm going is, whatever you present in October has to be that, like, that's our ceiling. We can't be like, okay, it was this, now it's this, then you come back, oh, and now it's this.
Yeah.
It'll be,
Pitchforks and torches.
yeah, pretty much.
Let's look at, just talk about the dates real quick. The 4th is a Monday. But there's council, water and sewer. So if we look at September, or the 21st is our council meeting, so next Tuesday night. But you need time to get ready for the public meeting first. And then the council meeting to follow, the special meeting after that. So, and for you to go to your cost like you're talking about. So you're.
So would you do it at the water and
21st,
service?
20 weeks, so here's,
12?
fifth is 2 weeks from Christmas. Council meeting.
12 seems like a reasonable target date.
Because I was just
12th or
saying,
the 14th.
yeah,
That's P and Z meeting, but
but you could do it on water sewer, right, on the 12th, turn the water and sewer into a public hearing meeting on the 12th, because you want to meet the council. You want to, according to your thing here, you want the council to have a special council meeting the week of October 4th to discuss this stuff, the public hearing the 12th, and then the council would vote on the 19th. That's what I
we'll
heard.
have a meeting on the 21st for the special meeting.
Something like that.
And then we'll get bogged down in other stuff.
So you really,
So we still get an October release date, which is what we really want to do.
Because you don't want to do it in November.
I think that delays are costly.
But they have, well, we have 90 days.
We
have
do.
till November 25th. So
We do.
what could happen if
Well,
we waited? What's the cost?
the contracts are set up so that we estimated an award in October, and so the contractors could come back and say, we estimated a start date in October, it didn't happen. And so, that opens you up to some liability potentially with completion dates as well as material supply.
Okay, so this award before November 25th, we should not really look at.
That's the 90 days.
From the 25th, not from the 2nd or September, not from the treatment plant operator contract.
Yeah, August 25th to November, that's the 90-day award
That's
window.
for-
So you can do that. I
for
wouldn't,
I feel
Fitzpatrick.
like I'm missing
So
one
In
date.
the bid documents, it said proposed beginning or kickoff in October.
yes.
Even, so
So that way-
we overlapped our schedule of.
That's what I'm missing, thank you.
so that way we gave them, I'm assuming you did that so they have more good winter weather before weather kicks in to do stuff,
Ideally, yes.
so they could start stuff.
Yeah.
before it's-
I would like it to, I think it's the best case scenario to start for an award in October. It doesn't necessarily mean that they mobilize to the site and are turning dirt the next day, but maybe it does. Or shortly thereafter, obviously, the contracts need to get processed and those things need to get done. So, yeah, that stuff does take some time.
We don't own the property even yet, do we?
Mhm.
But we do, the 10 acre. Okay.
The middle process and everything will take place after awards.
Contract execution, all the
So
shop drawings, all that stuff starts to come in, after the contracts are executed.
Is
So
there-
the first thing is the contracts need to get executed, the bonds need to get, the performance bond and the pay bond the contractor needs to execute, and then they need to supply the insurance certificates. So we've got enough time so that some of that work can be done in advance if we know that award is imminent. They can be working on some of that.
Is there a concern on your end, Lori, with moving too fast? Or dates
I
not-
just was like, we're trying to squeeze this all in and I see November 25th here and I'm thinking we should have more time, but if we don't, so with that being said, instead of pushing it into October that way, I mean, we have the council meeting next Tuesday. Could we plan for that? Either the last week of September, or the first week of October to have, get the process started if we need a special meeting with council, or if we need to set up the public hearing, or,
So the public hearing, is that, we want to have that, is it a public hearing or is this an information meeting? Information meeting don't take
we
minutes.
have public hearing or open house written on here.
Yeah, I don't think you're legally obligated to have a public hearing. We can talk to Mike about that and see what his thought is.
That's my impression.
I just think if we're pushing it instead of, our council meetings are the third week, right?
Right.
So if we are waiting until then, we're
Well, if
pushing
we were
to the
thinking about
very
needing
end.
time to get ready for a public meeting. This week could feedback before the council meeting. So it seems like the 12th. Or we have a special council meeting here on the 21st.
And other
We
than.
can do it on the 19th, if it's very cut and dried. Here we go.
Well, other than say, hey, we're expecting a 50% increase in assessments.
You know, really,
What's the informational meeting? What's the objective?
That's it.
So
Well, that's
is
it.
that?
I mean, nothing
does
else
that-
has changed.
Does that have to take place before the council meeting?
Well, the council meeting is where we would vote to award the project. And frankly, that can happen the same night.
That's what I was just gonna say. Could we just
So we-
host a public hearing before, or open house before the council meeting? And then,
Because we could do that. We could do that the week of the 25th if we wanted to.
But you want to get people's input in time for them to adjust the news, right? I mean, the
Well,
whole
but essentially, that's what you're doing that night, right?
but not everybody can make that one night. People work, people have other things, if they're gone, so you miss the one night, now the whole city makes a decision and there's no time. If I'm just being devil's advocate, I'm a citizen, you guys scheduled this and you made a decision the same night.
But you'd have the ability, because you'll know about that meeting at least 2 weeks in advance.
Right.
And if you know that you can't come, you have the ability to send an email or pick up the phone and call council.
Right.
And if you choose not to do
Will we have
that-
the information to give them.
Well, we can mail it out. That's what we did last time.
I guess I'm just going from a public, just to make sure that everybody has the information and transparency. No one feels rushed. If you did it the week before, then people have 7 days before the council makes a decision. And if they don't like it, they still can come to the council meeting in open forum at the beginning and talk in voice. You get 3 minutes. So then people have a second chance.
could we do an open meeting, or open house the 12th at our meeting, just like one of you had said, and then do a second one the night of council, so we've got, you know, a couple opportunities for people to come. It's a big deal. This is it. I mean, this is the final
I mean, we're,
push, so.
don't mean to sound harsh here, but I mean, we're going to do it.
Well, and I mean, I think we know your
We're
vote.
going to do it.
We know my vote,
Yes,
but,
people aren't gonna like it.
but we have 3 other people that may pick us down the stream and say, too bad, too bad. I mean, realistically, we can't speak for them, but at least this way, we've got 2 opportunities for people to come, and we can answer questions. And I mean,
I think people will understand. I don't think there's anybody who's gonna go, oh, I expected it to come way under budget and be
Exactly.
cheap. If
exactly,
you really think about it logistically and look at everything else, nothing's going down.
right.
But are they still gonna be happy with it? No. But in the reality, this is what it costs. It came in 12%. And if you look at all the other projects, which are about 15% overbid on the average, this is in the ballpark of where it should be. It's in line with your engineering estimates. If it was 50% higher, then people could go, what the heck's going on? You know, using gold fixtures, is this a government contract, right? You know, but this is in reality, you know, and then we're still also gonna be trying to do value engineering and trying to look at ways to cut that down some, as well as with your financing options, hopefully to see if we can get a 30-year versus a 20-year and lower that burden. So yeah.
Well, I think that we need to do a little bit more. I need to talk to Mike about the public hearing versus open house requirement, what we really need to do there. And
I like the open house idea better than a public hearing, because it's informational, right?
but
But I don't.
I guess I don't,
We don't know
that's a
what
good
we
question
need.
for Mike. I just don't know what the answer is.
The only change in outcome I see is potentially angry people not being as angry.
Because we have 2 opportunities for them to show up.
Right.
I agree with you.
So I don't.
And I'm gonna be here anyway.
Yeah, so I,
So I'm gonna be here anyway. So. They can be mad at me twice.
Could we, what would happen if we, and I think we're all concerned about making sure everybody's aware of this cost increase. So if we did, at the risk of having two meetings, the 12th and the 14th, of information meetings, and then have the council meeting on the 19th.
I don't know that we really needed two meetings.
I like the two on the 12th and the 19th, just because it's opening this meeting up to something that they could be at anyways. And then we have representation from the committee. I really like that idea.
Let me ask you a question. If you have your formal meeting or open house or public hearing, whatever the attorney says it has to be called, okay? On the 12th, that's your big meeting. After that meeting, all of that information is posted on the website at the city front desk, right? For access. If people didn't come to that meeting, they still could come to council on the 19th. You don't have to have a special meeting to re-present everything.
Well, yeah, I would do it just like we did last one. Put it on Zoom, record it, put it on the website. If you want to see it.
Yeah, so that
It's all
way they
there.
still have a week to see it, view it, and then again, come and comment. They'd still comment on it at the regular, but not do a separate presentation, I guess, is where I would head. It's just one presentation on the 12th. You record it via Zoom. So you have people here, people at home, and then people can watch it as many times as they want. It's fully transparent to the public. Here's what the final bids came in. Here's the impact of that.
I think we all want to be transparent. Just never how
Yeah.
realistic to get it out there. And that's the way we've done it before, and with the Zoom, and they can replay the video back, whatever, and if they want to.
I vote for the Paul and Lori plan. I vote for the Paul and Lori plan.
Okay,
So
so
open,
we have a consensus in that we'll look at
whatever it is that we need to do on the 12th.
on the 12th, one-time deal. And October 19th, we award contract.
We vote.
Or
to-
yeah, or
we-
not.
We vote,
That's it?
we vote on the contract, whether we award it or not.
Oh, yes, council.
All right.
And
So
Joe and I will be talking to Mike about it to get a response.
back to the agenda.
Item 2.
Okay, 2:00.
Item 2B, I will be quick here. Lori. Orinoco Estates wastewater agreement. So I gave Mike a copy of the wastewater agreement 5 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago. I think he's working on it. So I'm hoping that he gets us something back. Did he say next week?
I'm hoping for the council meeting. I don't know.
Either.
Well, no, we want to get we want to share it with Orinoco Estates. That's the main thing. You get in front of them, not necessarily the council, but.
The income survey. A couple of things on that. One is there has been some consensus that the rental agreements that Orinoco Estates has with about half of their residents has income information in it. And PFA has acquiesced to be able to use that information, so that's a good thing.
Good.
And we as a city agreed that that would be acceptable information for us, so.
That still means that we still got to get another plus or minus 20%. Which hopefully is doable, and we're working on it. There was some discussion that Orinoco Estates was gonna provide $70 gift cards, something like that, $50 gift cards for people, willing to fill out the.
With the time frame associated with it, the further it goes out, the less it gets, but.
As an incentive to fill out the form. So,
Well, at least we're doing something. That's good.
Right.
That's good news.
yes, so I think that's good news. I'm an optimistic person, so I'm gonna say that
Where's the gift card to?
Target, I thought he said,
Yeah.
Culver's, I
or
there.
a Visa gift
That's what
card. I can't
management's used
remember, yeah.
before, to get responses, to put a card out there and they get the response. So kind of bothers me. We should have thought that back in May. Anyway.
Well, it's just a matter of paying for, you know, it's $70 for quite a few users, so it's it's real money, but.
Yeah.
And it's there to their benefit, not the cities, so.
4B,
Riverwood, we met with Riverbend, talk about the Riverbank stabilization agreement. We've also met with Cedar Woodlands, and I provided all of the information to those two entities, and basically they're reviewing it, and I haven't received any comments. I thought the Riverbend meeting went well.
They were concerned originally with the trees being cut down and stuff. Were they okay with the plan and everything?
Yeah, they are, and we did decrease the number of trees significantly, and we added some plantings and did some things to accommodate or address those concerns.
Is there a deadline that you need those two signed?
Tomorrow.
It's almost 8 now.
I don't know specifically if there is a deadline. I'd sure like to have it
Did
before.
you give them a deadline?
I said within the next 30 days.
Before the river freezes. Harder to do when the river's frozen.
For River Bend, we obviously need the easement to do the work. Cedar Woodlands, we've already got a drainage and utility easement, so that's not necessary, but the PCA is going to require that be executed, so it needs to get done. And the sooner the better. Tempe easements, we still just have the River Bend HOA and Hornoco Estates easements. They're both associated with those agreements to be executed, so that's good. We talked about recording those easements and making the payments sometime in October. We did send out some correspondence to the property owners, providing them with an update as to what that schedule is and why that modification schedule was made. The low pressure sewer system easements, Linda continues to contact people. She's got about 6 that are not 6. She's got 6 that are in process. That'll get us up to 70, which is about 82 or 83%. But it's been slow going. And I'm not overly optimistic that the final 15 are gonna get there. But she's also working with some folks, there's a handful of properties that, people are sick or there's property transfer or, there's a good reason why they're not getting executed. And the majority of them, there isn't a good reason why they're not getting executed.
Worst case, they don't sign, we don't do the improvement on their property, that money just gets shifted to other costs in the project, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a win.
Yeah.
Well,
Never stop calling.
it's 18 grand a parcel. I mean, it's real money,
Yeah, there you go.
I don't think they read the fine print yet.
No.
Too many
About the
words.
late fees and suspect taxes. Okay, good.
So that's it, right?
Yep.
Can I get through them all? So a lot of information tonight. Thanks for sticking with me.
But I think that as we get near to the finish line, the bulk of information becomes less, so it's easier to be more clear on what we do
Yeah.
have to digest. With all the tons of other stuff that's finally been milled through.
The decisions get made and, that helps inform and
Right.
steer the course.
Well, I make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that. All in favor? Aye.
We'll be back Thursday for the budget planning meeting if you'd like to join us.
Type the tiny amount of sarcasm.
I just.
You missed Gold Rush tonight.
What about gold rush?
We were here last night for gold rush.
Oh,
We missed, there was
banner.
brownies.
a banner week, damn.
I don't know what's gonna be on the table tomorrow night, other than the budget. Are you gonna bring snacks?
But that's to take with you.
Cause if you're bringing snacks, Lori's
Please take it
coming.
with you.
Otherwise.
You don't take. it
All
with
right,
you,
she
don't
might
look
not.
at you. Good night tonight.
Go home.
Joe, in the next, we don't have a permit yet, right? NPD, yes,
Yeah.
we got it.
Yeah, we've had it for a year and a half.
And it's got our
February 20.
phosphorus
Yeah.
allocation, okay.
Oh, don't you remember we celebrated?
No, I don't.
We got
That's
trees.
cake.
Treats.
That was cake, yeah.
So wasn't there something with the waste load allocation for phosphorus that we were initially gonna get like basically a zero limit?
That's why we're getting the credits. That's the point of the riverbank stabilization,
Yeah,
that
but
generates the credits.
We
that
talked
allows-
that by the time all that got figured out, we might actually get some phosphorus. We might not have to do the improvements.
Right, so that's all been delayed,
Okay.
so that's not on the table. So we need the credits just like we were pursuing, so that ultimately will happen. It's just not gonna happen within the time frame that, it's not gonna happen before
Before we come
23,
online.
yeah.
Okay.
based on, 'cause I think I asked that question within the last year. And that's what my memory says is the answer.
Good enough for me.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you all. Good night.
Hey, thanks, Larry.
People are anxious to go. Must have been a long meeting.
We get to the hour and a half point. It's, okay. Moving along.
It is, it's a
It's a
lot.
good meeting.
It's a lot to digest constantly. There's still a lot of work to do here, Rylan.
Oh, yeah. Well, just going through those quotes. Bids yet too, like you want to do.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Well, let's hope that Dirt Pros performs for us.
What?
Let's hope for Dirt Pros performing for us.
Yeah, I can't believe the amount of rock that's over there. Have you seen it?
Mm.
It's just, it goes all the way back almost to the bridge
All right.
on either side.
Wow.
Just a lot of big rocks. Shut this down and let it record.
Oh, is that on Zoom?
Yep.